Welcome back to the Healthy Leadership Mentor podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Gray. We are in the second week of a season called What to Do When It's All on You. And so in our first episode last week, we laid out this idea that there are people in life who are battling alone, struggling alone, building alone, doing all kinds of things. And the pressure is on them to get results, to make decisions, to solve problems. And we laid out this foundation of understanding for this season that there are many people in our community who are feeling that pressure on a daily basis, that they have to get it done. They've got to make things happen. They've got to make it work. And it's all on them. The pressure's on them. And we talked about this idea that extra layers get added, like when that person has to be a provider or when they're dealing with their own broken history and all the rest of these things. And when people live in a state of long-term aloneness or trying to get it done by themselves, we get certain byproducts. And some of those byproducts that we touched on in our first episode include people can develop a siege mentality where they start to believe that the world is against them and everybody's against them. They don't mean to do it, but it happens over time. Secondly, self-doubt starts to creep in and people start to really wonder, have I got what it takes to get it done? Jealousy can be a byproduct of long-term aloneness where people are looking over the fence, as it were, and watching other people make progress and do well, and they're looking at the state of their own life and playing the comparison game, which is always dangerous. Fourthly, we talked about this idea that there's an increased risk of burnout. When people are long-term battling alone, trying to get things done without a whole lot of extra resource or team around them, the risk of burnout is dramatically increased. And we've dealt with that in previous seasons on this podcast where we talked about the importance of soul tank management. And we'll touch on that again briefly today. And the fifth thing that we talked about when it comes to the byproducts of being long-term alone in your situation is that you can have difficulty re-engaging with a team environment when you finally break through or there's a change of chapter or a change of context where that person is no longer alone and they have to reintegrate. And so there's all kinds of challenges that go on for people. And that's why I'm doing this season. I want to give some help. I want to give some practical advice and wisdom for the many, many people who find themselves out there, business owners particularly, solo parents, those who live alone, those who are reluctantly single, all kinds of people in all kinds of situations who are battling away, doing their best, trying to provide, trying to pay their bills, get the job done, but the pressure is all on them. And so this season is specifically for those people, but for those of us who are not in that boat, you can learn a lot about who these people are and how you can be a support for them and help to plug into what some of their high priority needs are. Last week, we touched on this idea that they need empathy, they need understanding, they need encouragement, they need a trustworthy person to lament and celebrate with, someone who is capable of sitting with them when things are tough, but also will celebrate them and talk well of them when they get some victories. And we talked about the idea that these people need mentoring. In other words, someone who can guide them and coach them and show them the path forward to get out of the situation that they're in. And so we are talking specifically and directly to individuals about what they can do when the pressure is all on them. And as I said, this is particularly about business owners, solopreneurs, solo parents, people who are having to deal with being providers on their own, people who are in teams, but their resources that are available are quite low, don't have a lot of support. There's many, many people in this boat. And I want you to know that as I do this season and we go through these episodes, I want you to know that I know what it's like to walk a mile in your shoes. I know what it's like to have to battle alone and push through without a lot of help beside you. I know what you're going through. I haven't been a solo parent, so I can't claim to have experienced that, but I have tasted a lot of these contexts, and I want you to know that I'm in your corner as someone who wants to see you make it, someone who wants to see you get through the challenges and break on through to that other side where you start to experience more victories than losses, the successes and the goals that you're hoping to achieve, and to experience the reward for sticking it out and seeing it through. And so in this episode today, I've got 10 pieces of practical advice, 10 tips, 10 thoughts, 10 ideas, if you like, that are going to help you if you apply them and get them implemented in your life if you are one of those people that is feeling that pressure because it's all on you and you need to know what to do. So let's dive right in to our first point, what to do when it's all on you. Number one, acknowledgement of your situation is not weakness. This is so, so important that you realize that to acknowledge what your situation is like and where you are, and the fact that it's tough. That is not a sign of weakness. In fact, I would say the converse is true. It takes some courage to acknowledge where you are. Now, when it comes to starting at this point here, acknowledging the situation of your aloneness and the struggle that you're in, I want you to make your first step to ignore mean-spirited people who haven't walked a mile in your shoes. You will find plenty of people online and offline who will look at you, and if you dare aerate the fact that things are tough and things are difficult, there's enough people waiting in line to jump on you and remind you that there are other people on the planet who have got things harder than you. Well, factually, that's correct. But the problem that we have with this situation is it's coming from a mean-spiritedness where people have a critical, judgmental, mean attitude that flows out of them. You don't need to be around those people. And so acknowledging that your situation is tough is not weakness. It takes courage. And you've got to stay away from those people who are mean-spirited. Why does it matter to acknowledge the place where you are? Well, first of all, you need to understand that denial will get you nowhere. I know that people are out there who will tell you to fake it till you make it, but it's actually not that helpful. In fact, it only leads to falsehood. Now, what I mean by falsehood is if you don't start with the truth and the facts of where you actually are, you will lean into all kinds of poorly guided advice, particularly advice that will see you creating a manufactured version of yourself, a preferred manufactured version of yourself, but there's no truth in it. And so what happens is you end up living a lie and you never actually find your start point. So denial leads to falsehood, and I don't want to see you do that. The truth is you are where you are, and it takes courage and strength to admit it to yourself, to face up to that reality and go, well, I don't want to be here, but I am here, and that's my start point. And look, the truth of the matter is if you have nobody, you've got me. You can lean in and listen to this, and I actually want to help you. I'm not just trying to lay down some principles and some truths and some ideas because I have this overwhelming need to say what I think. I'm actually wanting to help you. So if you're in this boat and you don't have a lot of people around, you can actually lean into these words, get some strength from it, get some truth from it, get some help that will actually help you navigate your way out. You are where you are, and you need to start there. Start by acknowledging it. Don't create a false version of yourself, a manufactured preferred version. That's just denial and falsehood. You are where you are. It's where you've got to start. And we want you ignoring the mean-spirited people who have not walked a mile in your shoes. Listen to those who have walked a mile in your shoes and who care about helping you to get out of there. Number two, what to do when it's all on you. Number two, honestly answer the question to yourself, how did I get here? Now, you may not know the fullness of the answer to that question, but you will know some of the answer. And I want you to start with that. Did you make a mistake? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Did you behave or operate in relationship in a certain way that has brought you into this spot that you're in? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Did you have circumstances go against you that were just pure bad luck and misfortune? Maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. You need to spend a few moments tapping into, how did I get here? The reason why honesty to this question matters is because there are clues waiting for you that are going to help you to get out and not return. Like we talked about in point one, acknowledging your start point and where you actually are is crucial. And if you can do that, you will discover that there are clues that will point to how you got to where you are. And in those clues is some of the help that you need to figure out how to get out of where you are and to not return. If where you are is a place you don't want to be, then you need to honestly answer the question, how did I get here? Now, when it comes to being honest about this, the truth is that for some of you, you are going to have to say there was some bad luck, and that will be true. For some of you, you will have to say other people's actions put me here, and that will be true as well. Again, another reason to avoid these mean-spirited people who are going to come so harshly at you and say, well, you just got to take responsibility. Well, we are going to get to that in due course, but taking personal responsibility does not mitigate against the fact that sometimes other people's choices and their actions do have negative consequences for us. So I want to encourage that you can point your finger cautiously and objectively. In other words, I'm giving you permission, if you need it, that it's not wrong to say some other people's actions contributed to me getting to where I am. Do it cautiously, Do it as objectively as you can because you want it to stay in balance. You want it to stay moderated in a way that is reasonable and truthful to help you move out of the place that you're in. And then you can return again to personal responsibility. It's really a matter of understanding it's not either or, it's both and. Some people will tell you that it's okay to blame everybody for everything. Well, that's out of balance. Then there'll be other people who tell you that nobody is to blame for your situation and it's all on you. Well, that is a mistruth as well. And that's the reason why we're doing this very season, what to do when it is all on you, because sometimes other people's stuff does contribute to you getting to where you are, and you're allowed to say so. Once we've done it, we then want to return again to personal responsibility so we can get back on task with finding a way through the current season. Number 3, put your focus on things that are in your control. Now, straight away in that sentence, I am inferring that for all of us, there are going to be circumstances that are in your control, and there are going to be circumstances that are outside of your control. What we want to do, if we're going to find a way through this season where everything is on us, we need to put our focus on the things that are in our control. In other words, you need to stop leaking precious energy resources on people and situations that you are not in control of. I'm going to say that again because hopefully it's going to trigger some helpful pictures in your mind as you hear it. You need to stop leaking precious energy resources on people and situations that are not in your control, and most likely they're not meant to be. We all do this from time to time. We burn energy that we can't afford to burn, focusing on situations and focusing on people and past moments and experiences that are actually not within our control, when really what we need to do is to focus our precious energy resources on the things that are in our control. And so the way we go about that is we actively identify where we are sending some of that energy. People and situations that are not meant to be in our control. Identify them and begin eliminating them. Start saying to yourself, I don't need to have a concern for that situation or that person or that place. If it's outside of your control, let it be. Preserve your resources for the stuff that actually is in your control. Number 4, what to do when it's all on you. Number 4, minimize unnecessary resource expenditure where possible. Now, this is connected to point 3 quite obviously. Minimize unnecessary resource expenditure where possible. Now, I'm going to give you 4 areas where you can immediately get to work on minimizing unnecessary resource expenditure. The first one is how you spend your time, which means to go through your diary and ask yourself, do all of the activities that currently live in my diary need to live in my diary when I'm in this season? Some things are unhealthy for you. Some things are actually okay, but you don't have enough spare resources to spend time on it, and it needs to be delayed for another season in life. You've got to review these things in your diary and check, where am I spending my time, and could I redeem some precious time resource because there's a few things in the diary that are actually not that necessary. The second one is money. When you're in the situation you're in, you don't need money stress on top of what you're already dealing with. And so evaluating your money, seeing a budget counselor if you need to, asking a trusted friend, someone that you can listen to and take advice from, what to do with making sure that money resource is not being unnecessarily expended in places where you don't need to. The third one is relationships. Now, this is all kinds of relationships. It's a very complex one, this one, because what I'm about to say is straightforward and truthful, but it's actually complex and not that easy to implement. Some of you have got some relationships inside family, inside friendship circles, inside your broader village, so to speak, that are actually really unhealthy for you. Now, depending on how close those relationships are will determine how easily and how quickly you can modify your exposure to those relationships. But I do want you to at least take inventory of the relationships in your life and ask yourself, do I need all of these in this season? There's a mixture of things here. Number one, there could be some relationships that are destructive for you. That's a whole other season that we need to talk about at some stage and not that straightforward to implement. But then there's this other side of things as well, where some of you will have some relationships that are not harmful, not destructive, but you don't actually have a lot of spare resources to keep on committing to that friendship. And it might need to pare back just for a short season while you're trying to preserve your resources. And the fourth area is our screen time. The screen time sometimes lures us with the deceptive lie that it will be relaxing and downtime and a break from our pain and our trouble and our difficulty. But what we actually do find is that we end up leaking more mental, emotional resources that we can't afford to waste. And of course, we've got to pay attention to some of the study and research that is beginning to come to the surface in the arena of neuroscience that is telling us that chemically too much exposure to screen time is not good for our brain, that we are overdosing our brains on dopamine, trying to pull that new amount of data in, scrolling down, releasing our finger on the screen, hoping something interesting comes through, whether it's a like, a follow, an interesting account that we want to look at. Some exposure is not harmful, but going to that as our crutch constantly when we're in pain and we're tired and we need to escape, as it were, we've got to be careful about exposing ourselves too much to the screen time, because most of the time it doesn't add anything to us. So number 4 is minimizing unnecessary resource expenditure where possible. Number 5, hopefully by now you're hearing a few things that you're able to put some handles on and get to work with. I promise you, any of these and all of these that you can implement and deploy in your life, they will bring you benefit and help you to get through this current season of figuring out what to do when it's all on you. Number 5, embrace the elite athlete mindset. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to become an elite athlete overnight. Some of you are thinking that time is way gone in my life and I probably could have never got there anyway. I'm talking about the mindset and the principles of the mindset that exists in those who are elite athletes. And really what I'm getting down to is this belief and this conviction that there is no such thing as a pointless 1% improvement. Now, let's sit with that for a moment or two, because this is really powerful if you can grab a hold of it. There is no such thing as a pointless 1% improvement. And let's talk about the obvious areas where you can embrace and deploy this mindset. The top 3 really are sleep, nutrition, exercise. If you can get some mastery in any or all of those 3 areas, you will find a tremendous benefit to the battles that you're facing. And the fact of the matter is, the elite athlete mindset says there is no such thing as a pointless 1% improvement. Sometimes we're looking too far ahead down the road and wanting massive changes, but we won't actually deploy the small changes. For example, if you're able to get yourself to bed half an hour earlier, why would you not try it? It's a little improvement that might make a big difference. If you're able to do something, not everything, but starting with something about your nutrition, putting better fuel in your body so you've got more energy, why would you not try it? If you could do a little bit of exercise where you can, maybe you work somewhere where you could take stairs instead of elevators. Maybe you live in a nice neighborhood where you could go for a walk at the end of the day for just 15, 20 minutes. Something is better than nothing. And believe it or not, the elite athlete mindset begins with very, very small things. And I want to encourage you that in one of those areas or all of those areas, you can start to deploy this new attitude, this new conviction that every piece of improvement is valuable to where you're trying to go. Number 6, begin with the most accessible actions. Begin with the most accessible actions. Like I just mentioned a moment ago, when you're in the space where you are, it's not easy to make massive wholesale changes and turn your life around overnight, despite what you will see on Instagram and other places where you are being promised on a daily basis that if you just do this and just do that, your entire world will turn around. Well, that's a fallacy. It actually takes a patience game, an endurance game, a resilience game to make major changes. But major changes are made up of lots of consistent minor changes. And so we want to begin with the most accessible actions. And I'm talking here about effective soul tank management. Now, I mentioned at the top of this episode that I did a previous season on that subject exclusively, soul tank management. We don't have time in this episode today to revisit all of that. And so I'm going to put the link in the descriptions below so that you can go back and watch and listen to that season. That will give you a tremendous amount of help to know what you can do that's accessible for everybody. So I'll put the links there. I'd love you to go and visit that. There's 5 episodes in that season, and I am certain that they will help you if you listen, write some notes, and try to deploy a few of the practical suggestions that are found in that season. Number 7 of 10, we're getting there. Number 7, learn the habit of asking who before how. Learn the habit of asking who before how. Most of us, especially as we get older, we get more familiar with the question of how do I solve this problem? How do I get through this situation? And the fact is, it's not a wrong question. What I'm simply alerting you to is the truth that there are many situations where who is a better question and can lead you to a faster solution. You're listening to this season and this episode right now, and you are actively practicing a who and a how. You're coming to someone who's got some ideas and some thoughts and some wisdom, hopefully, that can help your situation. And if you could learn the new habit of asking yourself, who do I know? Who is out there? Who wrote something? Who has a friend of a friend that they could introduce me to? Who has been on this pathway before me and can show me how to navigate through it? You will find that on many, many occasions, a who is a faster and more effective track to your solution than asking how and trying to learn everything and onboard all of the ideas on your own. You can do this in lots of ways. You don't have to have a direct person right near you to be this who. You can read books. You can research getting a hold of some kind of mentoring program and learning in that kind of way. But who is a great question to ask before you ask how, to discover whether it could be a better question in your situation. Number 8, consider engaging with professional support services. I'm talking here about psychology services, expert counseling services. And I want to start by saying this, that if you need that, or you feel like maybe you need that, there is no shame in that. Isn't it interesting how when people break a bone, they go straight to the hospital, instantly they go to the doctor and the nurse and say, please help me put this break back together so I can get on with my life. We do that with our physical life, and yet somehow we diminish the importance of that process when it's our emotional life, our mental life, and when our soul health is on the line. I want to urge you that if you feel like or know that you need some help with psychology or counseling or other specialist support services, there is no shame in that. You should get on with that process if you feel like that's important for you, because getting yourself healed and whole is indescribably valuable. You owe it to yourself. Look, it's possible that you have found yourself in the situations that you're in, maybe because there's some history that you've got there that's not altogether perfect. And really, that's every human on the planet. That's me. That's you. That's all of us. We're all carrying some size of bag of stuff around that is either memories we'd rather lose or experiences we'd rather not have had. And sometimes you need to go into triage to get the help that you need. And if your history is limiting you now, it will limit your future unless you address it. Let me say that again. If your history is limiting you now, it will certainly limit your future unless you address it. So let me encourage you on that one. If that's something you need, there's no shame. Go for it. Get into it. Take the elite athlete mindset like we talked about and say to yourself, I'm going to have the help I need. I'm going to go out. I'm going to research. I'm going to get the help I need to help myself get healed and whole and be prepared for everything that's on the road ahead of me. Number 9, the penultimate point in this episode, I want you to reimagine your preferred future. And I'm saying reimagine deliberately because I want you to access and unlock the power of your imagination to picture what your future could look like as you build beyond being in a season where it's all on you and you've got this pressure and you don't know what to do. Reimagine your preferred future. Specify it and try not to make it full of things. I know we all get tempted to say, well, if I could have the future that's according to how I want to design it, I'll have this house and I'll have that boat. And there's nothing wrong with those things in and of themselves, but I don't know that they're going to make many of us much more happy and content than we already are. In fact, sometimes we can pursue that stuff in our future and it only serves to compound the pressure. It doesn't make our hope any better. It doesn't bring any more light into our soul. And we've seen countless people who, even when they achieve it, are no more content than they were when they started pursuing it. So don't make that preferred future full of things. Rather, I want to encourage you, pursue freedom of time. What does your future look like? What does your life look like and your family look like if you were able to increase your freedom of time? In other words, having the power and the resources to direct what you do with the time gift that you've been given in this life. That would be a far greater way to shape the imagination of your future, to decide what experiences, what things, what moments would I share with those who I love and care about. That's a far better way to attack the imagination process. And another thought here, as you pursue freedom of time, I want to urge you to put purpose and contribution at the core of that imagined future. If you have a future that is well-resourced and well supported, and you're able to achieve this pursuit of new time and freer time and all the rest of it, but you have an absence or a void of true purpose, in other words, getting in touch with what gifts have I been given and how am I meant to use them in this lifetime. If you don't get in touch with that, and you don't have a sense of contributing to others at the core of your activity, you will still not reach that full potential that you're longing for. So don't go after just things that can compound the pressure. Pursue freedom of time and put purpose and contribution at the core of your reimagined and preferred future. Here we go, number 10. We made it to the end. Hopefully you're still with me. Hopefully you're still listening, still watching. And really, most of all, I hope that you're getting some handles on some things that you can actually put into place and deploy in your life. And I'd love to hear the stories from any and as many of you as possible of how you took one or two or three of these points, you put it to work, and it started benefiting you and helping you in your life. That would make me so happy to hear those stories. But here we go. Number 10, prioritize high quality connections. Now, I'm talking here specifically about your relationships with other people. Prioritize high quality connections. Now, what I am not saying here is that we are going to start grading people as whether they're high quality, medium quality, low quality. Resist the urge to go down that pathway. That's not what I'm saying. Nor am I saying that you should instantly delete some of those relationships that are not so high quality in the context that we're talking about. What I am saying is that the people you surround yourself with are an indicator of what your future looks like. If you're surrounding yourself in the majority with the kind of people that look like a future you don't want, then you've got it back to front. You need to prioritize high quality connections with people who have an alignment of values. And you need to seek it out. Find ways. If you need extra tips, you can contact me and I can give you some ideas around that. But find and seek out people who have alignment of values with you, connections and relationships that look like what your preferred future looks like. And I want to give you this practical tip here, which you can start to unpack what this means for you. I want to encourage you to have the bravery and the internal fortitude to find a way to get yourself into bigger rooms. Now, that literally means get into rooms that have bigger people, more accomplished people, more successful people, wiser people. Sometimes we get so insecure about the place we're in that we feel threatened by being around those people. But actually, you might get amazed one day to realize how many people who are somewhat further down the track than you would love to turn around and take you by the hand and help you to get where you're going as well. Sometimes that means attending a training event, going to a special conference, even getting online and being part of a webinar, challenging yourself to get into some bigger rooms so that you can upgrade your thinking, your hope, your believing, and to glean from the experience and the wisdom of those who might be further down the pathway than you are. Well, there you have it, guys. 10 practical things that hopefully you can get a few thoughts out of for what to do when it's all on you. I want to reiterate what I said earlier in this episode. I know what it's like to be in your shoes, and I really am pulling for you. I want you to get help from this season. I want you to get help from this episode and from the things that we're talking about here. And I would love to hear from you about your situation, what you're dealing with, how you're trying to get through, and perhaps how this information can help you. And it brings us to the end of this episode of what to do when it's all on you. I truly, truly hope that you've found something valuable in the first 2 episodes. I'd love for you to take a look in the description and the notes below so that you can subscribe to my 2 YouTube channels. I'm launching a new one soon, which is about everyday mentoring and thoughts that can help you in all areas of your daily life. Secondly, I send out a weekly newsletter that has much of the same kind of information, thoughts that can help to grow you and expand you and develop your thinking and your ideas about being successful in your own journey of life. Definitely go and click that link on the Soul Tank Management season if you didn't watch or listen to any of that so that you can get that information into your thinking. And then, of course, as I said, reach out if you want to ask me questions and share your story with me. I'd love to hear from you. Next week, we've got a special guest on the podcast and on the YouTube channels. And this person that's going to be my guest is a business owner who's got vast experience with this subject matter of being in that space. And everything was on him, figuring out what to do when all the pressure was on him to make it happen, solve problems, make decisions, get results. So I'm sure you're going to love him and resonate with his story and his journey, and it will be super insightful for all of us. And I'd love you to join in when we do that episode next week. But until next time, bye for now.